Arie Sleebusch was brutally murdered in his own home on his own family farm by being shot multiple times in the chest in June 1989. He was the grandfather of our head of research here at the Willem Petse Group, who of course share the same name. The rise of farm murders in this country in the late 80s coincided with the first recorded instances of the genocidal Kill the Boer chant being sung in public. Of course, in those days it was still sung as Dubela Ibunu in the native Zulu language. Farm murderers have even admitted to being inspired by this chant, and yet, despite international outcry over the past couple of years, the government of this country seems hell-bent on defending it as the ultimate hill to die on. The ANC, despite forming part of a government of so-called national unity since 2024's general election, and thereby opting to form an alliance with more liberal and centrist parties such as the Democratic Alliance and even the Freedom Front Plus, has blatantly refused to condemn the genocidal chant Kill the Boer that the leader of the EFF, Julius Malema, and the leader by proxy of the MK party, Jacob Zuma, is notorious for singing in public still today in 2026. All of this, despite the fact that when Cyril Ramaphosa and his delegation visited the White House last year, the most powerful man in the world, Donald Trump, highlighted this as perhaps the most pressing example, isolating the South African government from its former allies, such as the US.
We are going to occupy land. Yes. South African occupy land. That's who we are. So whatever you want to do, how can we draw by
a revolution demands that at some point there must be, because the is part of a revolutionary act.
Why is it then that despite the fact that this issue has been highlighted time and time again, the South African government under Cyril Ramaphosa simply refuse to condemn the singing of this genocidal chant? Stay tuned, because in today's video we are going to expose what will probably go down in South African history as the ANC's single greatest diplomatic blunder. When Donald Trump played clips from politicians chanting to kill white people in the White House for all the world to see, Cyril Ramaphosa sat there and laughed. He laughed off calls for systematic genocide in his own country. In the clips played for all the world to see, Julius Malema himself noted that a revolution requires, and I quote, killing, and that this at some point will become necessary and the integral part of said revolution that he is talking about. Later on, even when the White House officially convened that the singing of this chant is one of the key areas of reform that Ramaphosa needs to address before the relations with the United States can be restored, he, along with former President Thabo Mbeki, still continued to defend the singing of genocidal chants in this country.
The issues of arresting anyone for any slogan, that is a sovereign issue. It's not a matter where we need to be instructed by anyone that go and arrest this one. We are a very proud sovereign country that has its own laws, that has its own processes, and we take into account what the Constitutional Court also decided when it said that, that slogan, kill the Boer, kill the farmer, is a liberation chant and slogan.
What is interesting is that despite Ramaphosa's claims that the Kill the Boer chant is a liberation slogan, the chant itself was actually popularized for the first time by Pieter Mokaba in 1993, the very same year that South Africa ratified the constitution under which multiracial elections in South Africa would take place, and a full 2 years after apartheid was officially abolished in 1991. Still, the fact that the song was at least sung at ANC rallies before 1993 is evident from the fact that Ntotu Kochiwene, who murdered Godfrey Woyer on his farm in August 1992, admitted at the Truth and Reconciliation Commission to being influenced by the Kill the Boer chant at ANC rallies. This testimony before the Truth and Reconciliation Commission itself testifies to the fact that the idea that this song has been culturally interpreted exclusively figuratively in the past is at odds with all reality in this country. The fact of the matter is that white farmers in this country are being targeted by the very people and organizations defending the singing of this genocidal chant. But why would the ANC under Ramaphosa choose this chant as a hill to die on? Why are they willing to sacrifice all the moral capital they had built up during the days of Nelson Mandela, who rose as this sort of global leftist icon, all for the sake of maintaining this single chant, this genocidal chant? Why would they be willing to throw all of that away and alienate even their greatest trading partners and foreign allies over something which, to the entire political agenda, is nothing more than trivial? I mean, it's not like they would be unable to govern the country or pass legislation if they condemned the singing of this particular chant. They aren't even in a coalition government with the EFF or the MK, whose leaders are the ones notorious for singing this song. Furthermore, it's not even clear that the chant actually played any significant role in the anti-apartheid struggle itself, as the first known references to the song date from the mid-80s, towards the end of apartheid, when the National Party government already were taking steps to end apartheid and less than 5 years later officially abolished it. What is noteworthy, though, is that the origins of this song historically overlap perfectly with the rise of the phenomenon of farm murders itself. One of the first farm murders on record in this country was the murder of Arie Sleebusch in 1989. He was the grandfather of our head of research here at the Willem Petsche Group, and he was murdered in his own home on the family farm in June of that year. Prior to the late 80s, the phenomenon of farm murders was completely unknown in this country, and as in the case of Arie's grandfather, people back then didn't even lock their doors at night on their farms. And so the fact that Cyril Ramaphosa and the senior leadership of the ANC are willing to defend this genocidal chant, even to the point of risking South Africa's most valuable international trade relationships and its party's entire reputation on the international stage, indeed makes this a very strange hill to die on. The only logical explanation is that in the back of their minds they are still prioritizing their relationship with the EFF and the MK above everything else that we named in this video. Of course, in the hope that one day the ANC will be reunited with its daughter parties and be restored to its former glory, the days when the ANC commanded 60% of the vote in this country. A party that still dreams of one day reabsorbing the EFF and MK into a single dominant liberation movement cannot afford to alienate the very radical racial nationalism upon which those movements were built, even if doing so means normalizing rhetoric that increasingly isolates South Africa from the civilized world. And yet, in this process of attempting to reconcile and reunite the Pan-Africanist bloc in South Africa, the ANC leadership will most probably end up responsible for destroying their own party for good. And in doing so, historians of the future writing on the rise and fall of the ANC will point to this as one of the greatest ever strategic and diplomatic blunders that the ANC has ever made. In a recent video, we highlighted the extent to which the destruction of the ANC has become inevitable. You can check out that full report by clicking on this link appearing on your screen right now. And please consider supporting our work by joining the Willem Petsche Group as a paying member. Simply follow these easy steps on the banner below. Goodbye and God bless.